Wait, what? Hey, this is the Haha, Wait, What? Podcast with Mandy Brooke. I'm an entertainer, content creator, and musician. You may know me from my song parodies and funny antics on Instagram and TikTok. On my podcast, we try to make sense of the confusing parts of life because literally we're all winging it and have no idea what we're doing, and that's totally okay. So relax, grab a glass of wine, and let's chat. Hey besties, I hope you're feeling warm and cozy today, especially in November. It is finally fall and cool outside. Today we're going to be talking to Devrie Donalson. You may know her from TikTok, Instagram. She is a social media sensation. She is hilarious and witty. And she just recently released a book called You're Gonna Die Alone and Other Excellent News. And despite the title, it's probably the most relatable thing I've read in a long time. And I'm not a huge reader, but this had me hooked, had me laughing, had me crying. She delves into so many personal stories with so much wit and sass, and it's like reading something that your big sister left for you, like a map to navigate this crazy world. So today we're going to cover some of what's in her book. We're going to talk about friendship breakups and grief and just how to figure it the fuck out. We're all just winging it here. So kick your feet up and enjoy this soulful conversation. I have Devrie Brynn Donalson in the house. She is a storyteller, a social media fast talker, best known for her witty and relatable tales that are equal parts humor and heart. She has developed a huge global following who appreciates her offbeat funny bone and authenticity. Devrie chronicles her pursuit of a full life and her best attempts to figure it all out. Devrie has recently released a wonderfully humorous and refreshingly honest book called You're Gonna Die Flesh It Up. You're Gonna Die Alone and Other Excellent News, where she delves into hilarious, heart-wrenching, and poignant stories from her life, which we're going to talk about today. And honestly, we've been talking for the last 45 minutes before we even hit record. So I knew this was going to be good. Welcome to the podcast, Devrie.
Thank you for having me to the podcast that stole my name, my podcast name.
You know what? We should tell that. So I chose Haha, Wait, What with Mandy Brooke, obviously when I started the podcast. And I think about a month ago, we were talking on DMs. You said, oh my gosh, you're the one who stole the name that I wanted for my podcast.
Here I am, just bootstrapping an existence. I stumbled into being a TikToker. That was an accident. I was trying to write a book of poetry. I'd only told me and the moon. I'm a big moon girl, by the way.
Same.
And then 3 weeks later, I had 50 poems written and a literary agent slid into my DMs and was like, tell me you've thought about writing a book. Moon, best wingman. But like nothing in my life has come in a way where I was like, I'm going to become a this. And I've tried on all these hats and the universe finds a way of going, okay, you're close. So I'm here trying to put together all these storytelling mediums for a living. And I'm like, I could do a podcast, probably. I think I could do a podcast. And I'm trying to think of names of like what hits my target demographic, which is, like you said, you know, humor on the nose, hard on the finish. I'm like, what do we like? I need a title that's kind of funny and snappy. And I'm thinking, and I'm sitting there with my little Google open, and every title that comes to mind, I'm Googling, and somebody has a podcast with it. And it's usually like they started a podcast, did 2 episodes and gave up in 2015, but the name persists. And then I finally have this moment where I'm like, wait, I want to do a podcast called Wait, What? And I'm like, no way someone's thought of that. And I type it in and it says, haha, wait, what with Mandy Brooke. And I'm like, this bitch. I'm cursing your name into my computer. I have no idea who you are. And this is like your podcast probably had only existed a month or so at this point. And I'm like, probably. She just got me. And then flash forward, I think I don't know if I slid into your DMs or you slid into mine. This is how all of my favorite friendships are formed. But we're DMing on Instagram. We're sending voice notes where we're doing parody of Taylor Swift songs to what's happening in our life. It's instant and it's fast. You're like, you should be on my podcast. I'm like, what's your podcast? And you say, haha, wait, what? And I'm like, you bitch. And I immediately was like, it's you. I've been cursing your name for weeks.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
Exactly. So that's how this started. But I think it's just a testament to us being aligned in heart, mind, and soul.
Heart, mind, soul, and tater hole, girl. Girl, the first thing I ever saw from you was the kayaking reel.
Oh, yeah. I said, oh, you have a 401k. That's so nice. Have you seen my 401m? And then I dropped sunglasses wonky on my face and said, the 401 memories I'm making by living my life and spending my money exactly how I want when I want to. And then I said, mind your business. I'm kayaking in Italy. And the responses are amazing because, like, here's a hack to all the content makers out there that are women. If
100%.
you just want to up your engagement, make a video talking about money, because men, now this is a dangerous game to play because you don't want men to come and follow you in hordes, but they cannot help but write something down about it. So the reaction is tons of women who are like, women in finance, sparkle emoji. We love to see it. I'm like, the girls get it. And then it's dudes who are like, oh yeah, come talk to me about that when you're on my social welfare, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, clicking on their profile, I'm like, what is that? A 2001 Honda Civic you're rocking, bro? Like, okay. Is that you on a tractor? All right. We have different financial goals, clearly. Like, we're not aligned, sir.
Dude, the comment sections in, especially my posts as well, have been wilding out. Like,
Dude.
I posted the pickle song, the don't send me your pickle in my DMs, because I was getting so many dick pics. It was insane. I don't know why.
Let me pin that for a second, because I want to get back to understanding, like, what your demographic is of people that follow you versus mine, and get into, like, what happens. So you post the pickle song.
I post the pickle song. My demographic is mostly women aged 25 to 45. And
what percentage?
About 94% women.
Wow.
And, you know, the song went really well, like on TikTok especially, and on
I remember.
Instagram.
I saw it like a while ago.
Yeah.
People sent it. Yeah.
When it started hitting like 500,000 views, all of these men were like, you're a fat whale.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
It was vast and swift and surprising. I think we all do this as creators. We go on their profile, some of them anyway, if it's particularly egregious, and you just click on it and you're like, wow, you're wearing a Canadian tuxedo and you have an Arctic Monkeys song in the background and you're trying to be so hard to be alternative.
Always Arctic Monkeys.
Why? Anyway, I'm just going to stick with 25 to 45-year-old women. I got them. Like, they get me. It's fine. Men were really hurt in my comment section. It was sad. So.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly, when men realize that some woman wouldn't sleep with them, how quickly it's like their brain just slides backward into the primordial sludge from whence it came, and they just have to hurl forth the most unoriginal thoughts and comments, like whale. Like, I'm like, little boy think of big creature to tell woman she big. Good work. Yes, whales are big, honey. Big feelings. Good job. Like, it's just, I'm like, at least insult me with some pizzazz, or like, I don't want to be bored. This is the thing with me. I'm like men comment all the time similar shit. If I make any video where I imply that I think I'm attractive, men are like, no. They're like, you're a 2 at best. Know your place.
You're mid.
Like, yeah, mid. I'm like, okay, me and Margot Robbie, great. And so I like, most of the time I don't even engage. I screenshot them for, at some point I just want to make like a really long like carousel video with like Sarah McLachlan in the background, just swiping through their comments, like, in the eyes of an angel. I'm like, you can donate today for men's therapy. The only time that I'm like, let me engage with this, is if somebody really insults me with some backbone. I'm like, if you're not coming to me with Shakespearean wit and creativity, I'm not going to interact, because ultimately they want me to interact with them. I'm like, I'm never giving you that treaty. Like, I'm not giving you a Scooby snack for being mediocre. Solve a crime first, and then I'll interact with them. the only other thing that I'll do is if somebody says something that's like particularly egregious in a way that I'm like, this going unchecked is adding to community harm, I like to pin it. I like to take that comment and pin it to the top of the comment section. And then I make one response, which is always devastating. And then they're just in the Roman square, like the town square, getting stoned to death. And that's my favorite thing to watch, because I'm like, you asked me to meet you here. I have. And now my 93% female following is beating you to death.
You have learned your lesson.
Yeah.
Child.
I'm like, welcome to you stepped into the ring, you know, welcome. And that's one of my favorite things to just watch happen.
It's so funny how people comment things and they don't think that we're real people. They don't think that there is a real person reading the comments. It's very interesting to me.
It's very interesting. I think sometimes they don't feel like there's real people. I think sometimes they just don't. They're like, I'll never interact with this person in real life. There's no consequences for me to be horrible. So I'm just going to be channel that energy elsewhere.
It's a testament to how restless people are feeling, especially in this climate right now in the world.
I think that people react really strongly to somebody being seen on a large scale when they feel like they deserve that as well, or they want it. And I think part of those negative comments is them trying to like siphon a slice of that feeling. There's a lot of what I think is just like cultural misunderstandings around what happens to somebody once they have viral videos on the internet. Like, people think that I'm really wealthy because
oh my God, me too.
I don't get paid for any of those. I'm not in any of the creator things that give you money per view. I don't get paid for anything. None of those. And people think that I'm like, you know, I'm like, girl, I'm broker than your brokest friend. That's not a thing. Like, and I think that people react really strongly. I think men react really strongly to women that are not existing in a way to be consumed. Like my videos, I look like I look right now with you, which is no makeup, swollen eyes, you know, I look normal. Like I just ate a pound of pasta because I probably did. Like, yeah, normal. But I'm still funny and I still make women feel seen.
Yes.
And so the videos get sent and they get seen. And then men are like, but I don't want to masturbate to that video. And so why is she getting to be noticed and nobody notices me and I work all day? And then they react to that, I think.
It's always an inner problem. It's never about you. It's always about them.
Oh, never. That was one of the hardest lessons I had to learn in my life, was just like people's opinions about me have nothing to do with me. Just nothing to do with me.
Yep.
You can have whatever thoughts you want. They have nothing to do with me. And
I literally always say, what they think of me is none of my business.
Yes, that's what I say too. It's none of my business. Like, that is your thought. It's none of my business.
Are we soul sisters? Like, we literally have the same freaking brain. You spout out all these like cool words because you went to college. I fucking didn't. But oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So Devrie, before we get into this like amazing book, I want to ask, what have you manifested in your life that you're most proud of? I mean, obviously the book is amazing, but
what a question. I have a strange relationship with the concept of manifestation. I just sort of believe that if you are a person who is trying to do good things, like your intentions are legitimately good, I kind of believe that the universe conspires to make that happen. So far, that concept has been correct. And so I just sort of continue on in that way. Let's see. Craziest things I've manifested. Well, I accidentally became a TikToker. The first video ever posted. Yeah, first video ever posted. My username was like 7812Q. I had no photo. I downloaded the TikTok in 2020 in the same week, the same day that I binged watched all of Tiger King. And I was like eating ravioli out of the pot I made it in my bed during the pandemic. It was a fever dream. I wasn't
Yeah.
using TikTok. I've never opened it again. A few months later, I went on a hike. I got really overheated. It was terrible. I was really mad about it. The fastest way to turn me into a stone cold bitch is get me too hot. I posted a rant about it on Instagram stories. And I had a friend she was an early adopter of TikTok for the millennials. And she had gone through the pipeline of like married young to a man as a Christian woman and having 2 children to downloading TikTok and being like, am I bisexual, to being a full-blown divorced lesbian. So she'd gone through that TikTok pipeline and she was like, you have to post this on TikTok. It'll go viral. And I was like, I don't schmick schmuck. I don't know and she's like, just post it. So I post it and I don't open the app again. I immediately forget that happened in my day. It's out of sight, out of mind. But I'm on the phone with my Gen Z brother and I'm like, oh, I posted a video to TikTok today. And he's like, oh, it's probably going viral. Ha ha. And I opened the app and holy shit, it was. And so
how many views did it have at that moment when you opened it for the first time?
At that moment, it had like 500,000.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Okay.
And it got to 9 million. And so I had 10,000 followers overnight. And I had just been working a job in social media marketing. So I was like, oh my God, I'm officially an influencer, like 24 hours in. And to me, I just experienced that as like Arnold Schwarzenegger wearing a tank top that just said opportunity, kicking down my door with like machine guns in each arm going, sink or swim, bitch. Like, and I was like, I'm a swim. So I just started posting videos. I'm throwing spaghetti against the wall. I have no idea what I'm doing. Some of my early videos, I'm like, this is the most unhinged thing I've ever did. Some of them, I'm like, these are really good. And I wish people could see them. Like I did a series called 29, almost 30 and doing the bare minimum, where I just recorded myself struggling through life and then voiced over with a David Attenborough accent. Like I was watching myself in a nature documentary.
Dude, repost those.
I gotta find that. So I did that, but so I'm on TikTok now, and maybe like a year later, so approaching a year later, I have like 250,000 followers or so. And I posted a video where I said, you just got to tell the universe, like, this is my prom queen year. And I always said when I would turn 30 would be my prom queen year. I've always said that, where it's like, everybody wants to ask you to the dance. You're on top type thing. And I was like about to turn 30 and I was like, this is my prom queen year. It's the time, I'm going to get what I want. Everyone wants to dance with me. My dress is really pretty. I'm having the best time ever. And it was only like a month later or so that I had done the great quit my job and run away to Scotland moment. And that was the second video. I posted a video where I was hiking Arthur's Seat on my 30th birthday. And I was like, well, today's my 30th birthday. And instead of having a crisis about it, which would be silly, I quit my job and flew to Scotland with no friends or plan or money. And I said, and I feel great, right is green. And that got 9 million views. And the caption of that video, I think I'd posted something like, off to find a kind stranger to buy me dinner, because I was just deeply in credit card debt, had no money. And enough people Venmo'd me like beer money for my birthday from that video that I rented a flat in Edinburgh for 6 months in Scotland. During that time, signed a book deal, wrote the book, and got, another influx of a ton of followers who were watching this story of me trying to change my life in real time. Ended up being in the Google Year in Search video with that. Ended up being posted about on Facebook and watching a million of the boomer generation just be like, she's struggling to hike that hill. When I had cancer, I used to run it in 6 minutes, just Facebook comments you love to see. That all came from this quote unquote manifestation practice of just saying, fuck it. This is the thing I feel like is where I'm supposed to go. I have no plan. I have no plan B, but I'm thinking to myself, if the worst happens and this fails, what will be different about my life? Because often the answer is it will look like it looks right now. Like in this moment where I have this desire that feels scary, this thing I want to do that could result in failure. So I'm not doing it. I'm already creating the life that I would have by assuming I would fail. I'm now creating a life as though I had failed. And the worst thing that could happen is I end up right back here and I've learned something along the way. So that's kind of my vibe with the manifestation thing is like, I'm going to take a leap. And if the universe wants me to stay, it will find a way. Right now, I'm in New York City. I'm podcasting to you from my apartment that I completely lucked into because after Scotland, the funny thing about different countries is they have like visas. Like you can't just be there forever. What?
I wanted to be in Italy forever when I spent a month there. And
Oh my God. I cannot believe that. What was his name? Marcel
Lorenzo.
Oh, Lorenzo, keep your flu to yourself, you wicked little man. I was so upset for you. I did see that video back then before I knew you. And I was like, this bitch got the flu from Lorenzo on day like 2. Oh, it hurt me in the heart.
Awful. So crazy.
My Scotsman didn't give me a flu, but
good.
But I did
give you something very much better.
He did. He gave me a lot. I did end up in between the sleeping with the Scotsman and the posting about my video on the hill. I did end up, he didn't give me a flu, but he did give me an anecdote I quite like, in which I was chasing a morning after pill down the streets of Old Town Edinburgh because I dropped it and it's bouncing off of cobblestones, threatening at any moment to go into one of these cracks. And there's city buses coming, double deckers, baby, loaded down with tourists. I look as hungover as I feel. I had just stopped in a Starbucks to shit my brains out. And now I'm chasing this morning after pill down the street, thinking to myself, like, this is such a moment. I hope I never, like, if my life was a sitcom, this would be in the pilot. So he gave me that. Scotland ends. I get to the end of the 6 months that you can be there as a US citizen with a very privileged passport. I come home. I wrote the majority of this book in Scotland. I turned it in. I'm thinking, God, it's great. It's fantastic. Start working on the edits with the developmental editor. It's been a few months since I wrote it. And in that time, I'd been focusing on getting better at being a professional writer because I am one now. So I went to a writing conference. I'm reading books, because I'm not trained in this at all. The last time I creatively wrote was in high school. I open it up 3 months later and I'm like, what is this red crayon scrawled toddler dribble? Like what? In 3 months, I was like, I'm so bad. And so then comes the editing and the re-editing phase. And at this point, I'm living back at home with my parents. And I just found, it took me a long time because I'm also writing this novel that's like a fictionalized story of my runaway to Scotland. It's not about me. It's just that's the seed that started it, and I'm almost done with this novel, but I'm trying to write it while I'm at home and editing this book. And I just can't, I just can't do it. And I finally realized that some of us got really lucky in having families and home lives that feel supportive and a really safe space. Some of us didn't always have that. And so when I'm in that space, creativity is incredibly vulnerable. You have to be open in this way that it's okay, I hope I'm in a place safe enough that if I'm this open, no meteor comes and impacts, lands in my chest and explodes me. And in that space, in my hometown, in this place where I'd experienced so much life, lost friendships, lost relationships, had hard times as a kid, I just had to have a constant, low caliber field of defensive energy in order to feel okay there. And I just couldn't, which meant I just couldn't create. Yeah. And so after 6 months of being there and struggling, and it was important for me to go back because when I ran away to Scotland the first time, it was right after I'd lost these 2 huge friendships in my life. And it was such a significant grief. There's no words to encapsulate what it feels like to lose the 2 people that have lived every day with you. And so I was sort of like a dog looking for a corner to lick my wounds where nobody would come try to touch me. And I'd gotten past that part where it was I'm just bleeding every day. But I was to the part where I was now I need to bury those bodies and actually do a funeral and grieve. So I needed to go home. But once I got past that, I was I have to get out of here. And I'd always wanted to live in New York, always wanted to give that a try. I have notebooks from the first time. The first time I came to New York City, I got in a cab and I was like slightly buzzed and I'm driving through the city and I said out loud to myself in the back of this car, so this is what falling in love feels like. Like I
Oh,
loved New York and I'd
wow.
always wanted to go.
It's been
And
waiting
so,
for you.
yeah, when that song came out, I was like, damn it, she beat me to it. And then in May of this year, so right now it's what month are we in? October?
Yep.
I took all of the money I had left. I spent it on 6 weeks in the shittiest short-term apartment that was way overpriced in Hell's Kitchen, right above Empanada Mama, 24-hour open empanada shop. Wow,
Oh,
the things I heard out that window.
wow.
And I did the same thing of like, I'm going to go. I feel like if I can just get my feet on the ground in New York, if the universe wants me to be there, which is what I feel like is next for me, it will keep me here. And here I am in October, living in an apartment that, I had a flight home on July 1st. My lease in that apartment was up July 1st. It was July 29th or June 29th, I think. Oh no, I had a flight home the 30th, June 30th. Lease was up the 30th. It was June 29th. And I still hadn't packed. I was like, I don't think I'm leaving. For the whole week, I'd been like, I don't think I'm leaving. I don't think I'm leaving. And a follower of mine who I had DM'd when I first got to New York, I was like, I don't know anybody here. And a few people had reached out and been like, we should get drinks. And I like took a chance on a few, random internet people. And she and I had never actually met up to get a drink, but we'd chatted a bit. And she was like, hey, I don't know if you're trying to stay in New York or not, but a friend of a friend of a friend knows a girl with a room open who's looking for someone to stay till September. So I started texting this girl. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a place like tomorrow. She's like, I'm looking for a renter like tomorrow. Come look at the apartment. I come look at it. I'm like, this is perfect. So with it, it's a 12-hour window. And I'm like, okay, it's another lily pad. Like it gets me 2 more months to figure out something else. I move into this apartment. The instant I get here, I'm like, God, I'm so sad. It's only 2 months. Like this feels like home to me. I wish I could stay. And that the girl who owns the lease, her boyfriend was supposed to come back when he was done with his contract. And they were supposed to move into the room that I'm in together. And they broke up.
They broke up.
And I was like, I'm here. and like, I'm like, I couldn't afford anything $1 more expensive. I can barely afford to be here, but she's had this lease for 10 years. So it's like this magic, lucky, stumbled into it place. And I'm still here in New York and I'm writing 3 other books. This book has come out and all of it, I feel like I can trace back to that moment of like, this is going to be my prom queen year. I'm insisting on it. Everything's going to go my way. And even though I suffered probably the greatest losses that I've ever suffered in the same year, I also grew more exponentially than I've ever grown and felt very much that I learned the lesson of the things that are meant for you, the people that are meant for you, the love that's meant for you. You have to clear space in your life for it. Like things have to die in order for anything to grow. And that was the craziest stuff I've manifested.
I mean, I don't think you have a complicated relationship with manifesting at all. I think you just think of it a little differently, but you aligned your frequency to what you wanted and then it came. Did you get your publishing deal after the TikTok thing? Did they find you on TikTok or were you reaching out to publishers before that?
So my lit agent, she had messaged me like right before New Year's. And I'd been like, yeah, I'm interested, but I was still kind of in this limbo place in my life. I didn't have specifically an idea for a book other than this poetry book that I was writing. Like, I wasn't sure what direction my life was going to go in. At that time, I had like a couple like talent agents, like LA, like Hollywood people being like, are you represented? Blah, blah, blah. And I didn't know kind of what direction things were going to go. And then I went to Scotland and it was actually February 22nd of 2022, 2 to 2 to 2.
Oh my
And
God, that was a big day for me too. That's so weird. Okay, go ahead.
Dude. I was in Edinburgh. I'm sitting on the top of Calton Hill and I'm thinking about my life. And I literally said out loud, okay, this is it. I'm going to try. I'm going to write a book. I called my aunt. I talked to her for a bit. I toasted a shot of whiskey out over the city and took a swig, even though I still hate whiskey. And I recorded a video up there and posted it in which I was just like, I'm going to give this fucker a shot. Like I'm going to try to stay here. I'm going to try to write stories that connect with people that a publisher wants to buy. I have one life and this is mine. And I'm going to try it. And I have that quote is actually printed out in a frame right over there because my friend gave it to me for my birthday and made me cry in a Mexican chain restaurant. That was the day that I decided I was going to write a book. So then I came home. I was staying at my friend Dylan's amazing rental apartment in Edinburgh, the Cannon Cave. You know, I had nowhere to live in Scotland either. And then I got a DM from a random person that was like, I have this rental apartment. Want to come stay if you post about it? And then he became like my adoptive brother and all this stuff. So I'm there. And I tell my agent, like, okay, I want to do this. And I sign on with her. And then pretty much we start brainstorming a book concept. She's like, you got to write a nonfiction book. This is what people want from you. They want you to tell funny stories like on the internet. I'm like, I don't read nonfiction. I don't want to write nonfiction. I'm a 30-year-old ding dong. What does anyone have to learn from me? Like, I don't want to write a book that's like, here's how to live your life. But then eventually she was like, what about a book about like finding your community, like finding people who are like you? And I sort of had this moment where I was like, I just lost my two best friends. I feel completely untethered to anything. I'm here finding myself. Like when I left for Scotland, I really had this moment, you know, I was about to turn 30 and I was like, I don't recognize me. For the first time ever in my life. I felt like disconnected to who I was. And about 5 years before, I had lived in Glasgow, completely different city. And gotten my master's degree. And I was like, that was the last time I really felt like myself, if I think about it. And so maybe I'll go like re-encounter, like, I wonder if I go walk the streets of Scotland, if I'll run into her. And so I did. And so my agent's like, you know, what about finding community? And I was like, what about a book about finding yourself as an avenue to finding love? And that was how this concept of like, you're going to die alone and other excellent news was born. So then I wrote a couple chapters. I wrote like a conceptual pitch for the book. That was a fun way to say conceptual. Conceptual pitch for that book, David. And
I like
and
that.
Then she went out to pitch it to various agencies. At this point, I had a connection with Blackstone, who published this book. And so when he found out I was writing a book, he was like, let me take it to our people. So my book got sold in what's called like an exclusive offer. So normally a book would like go to auction, where it's like 3 days or 3 weeks or whatever, where publishers have the option to offer an auction and outbid each other. But you can do something called an exclusive offer, where like if a publisher wants to make an offer before it goes to auction and make a deal, they can. And so that's how my book got sold, was in an exclusive offer to Blackstone.
Wow. You've mentioned this quite a few times. And the part of the book that hit the home the most for me was when you went through that friendship breakup. And after coming back from, you know, those months in Scotland, you opened an old box in the garage.
Oh God, yeah.
Full of memories and the friendship that you lost. And you realized that each memory you had, like each major milestone in your life, you had them in it. And then you said, and I might cry when I say it because it hit me so hard, it struck me through the heart. You said, before it was painful, it was precious, and perhaps it can be both. And I thought about like my divorce. I thought about like all of the hard things that have happened in my life and how I've had to really like reconvene everything and really think of it in those terms. Like, yes, it was so precious before it was painful. And the way that you encapsulated that was just so beautiful. And I'm so sorry that happened to you with your friends, but like lines like that are touching people on a scale that I don't even think you even realize. Like you're really making like a huge dent, Devrie, a really big dent, and a good one at that.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. That chapter, it's called Scotland Grief and the Vibrator I Hid in My Grandma's Garage. It's the second chapter in the book. But it was the second to last chapter that I wrote. I wrote that months after what I thought was like a completed manuscript.
Wow.
And I worked really hard on the flow of the book. And when I was going back reading it, I was like, I have to put something right up front that like cracks my chest fully open, because if I'm going to ask a reader to be vulnerable, like I have to model that behavior first, and I have to prove that I have also done that. Like they can trust me to know that if I'm leading them somewhere, I know the way. And at that point, I wrote most of the book while I was in Scotland, actively like reeling from this pain. At the point that I wrote it, it had been almost a year. And I was able to look back and start to look at the Scotland experience and digest it. And so I wrote about why I did that, why I went to Scotland, what was happening while I was in Scotland, because, I'm posting about it on social media, but I'm not posting about
the inner workings of it.
What happened there. Like I'm barely breathing, and I'm posting things that are true and that are real. And like, everything that I posted about this trip to Scotland was very accurate, but this horrible thing that was happening to me behind the scenes, like that wasn't for public consumption. That wasn't for anyone's consumption. I didn't even tell people in Scotland that had happened. When they're like, what are you doing here? I was like, oh, I'm about to turn 30 and my life wasn't what I thought it would be. I'm trying to live a life that I want. And also like ... the thing that doesn't get said is the people that I had chosen to love and be loved by, who had witnessed everything in my life, who were the keepers of my history, my memory, who were the most intimate relationships in my life, who were these people who we'd built ourselves together. We'd learned the art of becoming side by side. We'd been each other's source of wisdom, of comfort, of witness, of puzzling out what it is to grow up. We'd been all of these things, planning to be those things for each other until we died. And so they were these relationships that had no trap doors built into the floor. There was no escape plan. There's no fire exit. So when that house came down, it came down on top of me. And like going to Scotland, that period of grief was like trying to dig myself out of the rubble.
Yeah.
When I got home and I opened that box in the garage, I was in the period of like sorting through the rubble for anything salvageable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I opened that box and I had packed it 5 or 6 years beforehand, and I hadn't gone back to it. And like I said in the chapter, I didn't know what I was going to find in there besides probably like Harry Potter paraphernalia, the first vibrator I ever bought, which I'd stashed in a box and stored in my grandma's garage because I didn't know if TSA was going to be like, whose buzzing penis is this?
That happened to a friend of mine, so I'm glad you didn't.
No, see, I was like, I'm unprepared for that. But I opened the box and it was just, like I said in the book, it was like this time capsule, like grief bomb. And it just like, it was almost a physical wave that like went through me. Like I felt this impact. And I start going through, and it's photos, like you said, of everything in my life. One of these best friends I'd met the first day of kindergarten on the swings.
Oh my God.
And we'd been best friends our entire life. So it was every memory I ever had one of these two people. And I'm a friend person. I want to share my memories with someone else. I want to enjoy life with other people. So everything from, kindergarten graduation to junior high graduation to high school graduation to their weddings to college graduate, like every milestone that people take photos of, they're in those photos. And I'm like, I can't cope with the idea that this is all bad, that this is all rot, that this is all unsalvageable. But I still don't even understand what happened. I still don't have any closure around these losses. I still don't even understand what I did or why they left. And I was working so hard to get to a point where I was like, okay, so I don't need to understand. With like my friend from the first day of kindergarten, I just never heard from her. One day she just never answered me again. She just ghosted me
Oh
after
my God.
26 years. And it felt like, I've left crying voicemails, I've texted, I've called, nothing. It's hard to talk about this grief because there's no like social understanding of it. There's no social support. Like, who brings you a casserole when your best friend never answers the phone again?
Yep.
But tell me that that's that different than if she'd been like hit by a car, like one day she's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, so I'm trying to understand this. And my brain wants to rewrite that story as she must have been a villain because this is devastating. My pattern in life and how I'd been treated a lot from the time I was little was like, if somebody mistreated me, the story became that I deserved it because it was like justifying their behavior. And so everything in me wanted to find a reason that it was my fault or find a reason that it wasn't. So it was like somebody else's fault. And so I had to like really actively choose who to be in that moment. And for me, I was like, okay, here's the information I have. I have 26 years of knowing this person and of knowing her to be kind and brave and smart and not a hurtful person. And I know that she does not hurt people on purpose. And that if she did something like this, which she, I'm assuming, knew would be devastating to me, it's because she feels like she had to. For some reason, me being in her life was costing her her peace and wellness. And I don't know if it's just because I'd been there too long and she was trying to change. She was trying to start over. She was trying to be someone new. And I knew too much. If I was in the room, she couldn't feel new. Like, I don't know if it was that.
Oh, wow. That's a really good observation. She couldn't
Yeah.
feel new.
I don't know. Like, I think that happens. So I was like, that's the information I have is knowing who she's been for all this time. The information I don't have is why she did what she did. So I'm going to choose to assume that she did what she did because she had to, or she felt like she had to.
Yeah.
And she's still a good person. And so when I opened those boxes and I found all of that shit and it hurt so much, I'm trying to decide, like, do I throw these things away? And is it the right thing to do in terms of healing, in terms of like this quote unquote healing journey or whatever, to let these things go? If I hold on to them, am I actively like stopping myself from getting well?
Yeah.
But then I had that moment. Like I said, I think it's the final line in that chapter. Like, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know if this is always going to be painful. I don't know if this box will always hurt to open. And I don't know if someday I'll open it and go, why did I keep all these things? These people haven't been in my life in forever. And it won't sting anymore. But like I said, what I do know is that before it was painful, it was precious. And that maybe there's space for it to be both. Maybe these things can be both.
And you also said that time and distance are your two greatest friends for forgetting what you have lost.
Yeah.
Isn't that a fucking bitch?
Dude. Dude. And I think it's like true most days. And then for some reason, like one day, it'll feel like it just happened. And then the next day, it'll feel like it happened so long ago. Grief has a tide. Like, it's got its own moon somewhere that pulls it in and out of your heart. And nobody gets to control that, but whatever that is.
Your garage box is my bottom Chester drawer. I have things from a particular person that the only things that I have of this person, and they're very stupid objects, but I can't get rid of them. They represent such a very important part of my life. And when I read that chapter, I was like, oh my God, like I feel this. I totally understand what she's coming from.
The girl I was that packed those boxes away, who never expected to open them as a person who didn't have any childhood best friends anymore. Like, I wasn't ready to put her down forever.
Yeah.
And I think that my first 30 years have essentially been a practice in, I feel like, untangling a big knot, a series of knots to get to something that feels understandable and manageable. A lot of that process has been identifying and acknowledging versions of me that existed before that don't anymore, and then letting them go. And I use the analogy of burying them on the hilltop.
Yeah.
And I have a graveyard in my heart of all these people, and I wasn't ready to bury her quite yet, if that makes sense.
I work with a spiritual teacher. His name is Sean Dresch, and I study tantric meditation. And he says that there is a 7-year rule where every 7 years, especially women, they change, their entire chapter shifts. And when I was reading your book, I was kind of doing the math in my head when your grandfather passed away to the friendship breakup. I believe you were around the age of like 25 to 28. He always says he gets most of his women students at 28 because that is the 7 year. That is when everything shifts. So when things fall away, as painful as it is, it's a pattern. It's I believe the universe has some sort of algorithm where everybody needs to work within or something. And because I'm a Virgo, of course, I need organization. But I do believe that when those things fall away during those 7-year periods, it's meant to be. But you at 35, me at 35, when that 7-year is up again, we're going to be in places that we've always imagined. I truly believe that.
Oh God, I can't wait.
Like, you're probably going to have that movie deal and like 2 more books under your belt. Like, girl.
It did happen. My grandpa passed it when I was 28. And then it was like that next year of turmoil until those friendships kind of had taken their last breath.
The things fall away that are not meant to be in your next chapter. It's so interesting.
Yeah, I think when I say one of the hardest lessons for me to learn is that like people's opinion of me is none of my business. I think the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn is to love with loose hands instead of holding things so tightly that they suffocate. And I have a poem called Loose Hands in the book that talks about this. That was one of the first ones that I wrote. I used to think of life as like this garden where you plant things and they sustain you forever. And your job is to keep it healthy and to keep adding things there. And it's your little slice of earth where you have these towering oak trees that are these friendships that'll never die. You have these fruit trees that are these friendships that always give you life and this and that. And I never expected or prepared for the cycle of death. I never accepted that something could die despite my best effort, because I am not a person who lets things die. Like, I was born knowing who I was. I was born with a sense of self of just like, I can do it. Like, I have a truly delusional sometimes sense of like I can figure it out. And it served me well. Like, at one point I signed a really ironclad NDA, so I can't say a lot, but I got hired by like some of the most famous people on the literal planet to paint their nursery, to do like a mural. And they were like, you can do this, right? And I was like, oh yeah, I'd never done a mural before, but I was like, how hard could it be? I'll Google it. And like, that worked. It was awesome. But like, just this delusional belief of like, yeah, I'll figure it out.
I throw myself into shit all the time that I have no idea. I should have no business being there. And I always tell people, I'm like, I can prognosticate like nobody motherfucking business. Like, I'm sorry,
totally. Can you define prognosticate for me, please?
Actually, I have a sign right there. It's mystical prognostications and predictions, love, destiny, fate. So prognosticating is, I have intuitive feelings that I definitely voice out, and most of the time they're right. But I have a knack for explaining things and pretending like I know what I'm talking about, and that's what
Yeah.
prognosticating is. It's like,
Oh, hell yeah.
grasshoppers, you know where grasshoppers like came in on? It was a shipping boat from Africa, and this is da da da. And you're just making up facts and you're prognosticating about like certain things or
So,
whatever. Not
so
making it up, but
the game Balderdash, did you tear it up
I've
at that game?
I've never heard of that game.
Mandy, the game Balderdash is so fun. Okay, so it's like you get little pieces of paper and you're around a group and there's one person per round and it switches who like reads out the pieces of paper. And the whole game is you get like a prompt and you have to make up either a definition or like the answer. It's like a question, all these things. And you turn it in, and the one person who's reading it, they have the real answer and they write it on a paper too. And then they read through, like, let's say the word is prognosticate. What does it mean? And you make up a definition, and then they read through all of them, and everybody at the table votes for which one they think is the real answer. And you get points if people vote for your lie, and you get points if you choose the right one. And it's literally just this game where you're just bullshitting. So
Dude,
effective. It's so fun.
I would kill that game.
Tear it up at Balderdash.
If I come up to New York and visit you,
Oh hell, we're playing Balderdash. Oh my, I will like go. We will. This is a solemn promise to the listener. If there are any fans of Beer Mandy in New York City, all 10 of you, we will meet you in Central Park and play a game of Balderdash when she comes to visit. I'll put up a little flag. This is the bullshit flag. Come meet us here. We're playing a game of Balderdash.
Fucking yeah, lovely. I love that so freaking much. But let's get back to what you were saying about loose hands.
Yeah, I was never a person who, I didn't lose. Like, I didn't lose. If I put my mind to something, it was happening.
Yes.
And so when these things in my life started dying, and no matter what I did, they were going to die, it was so disorienting for me. And like, people said, well, things just change. You grow out, this and that. To me, it felt so traumatic. Like, it wasn't this natural decay. It was this sudden death.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had, when the first, leaf turned brown, I wasn't like, oh, shoot, here it goes. I was like, I'm going to now Google how to save a tree. I'm going to hug the tree. I'm going to climb the tree. I'm going to build a tree house in the tree. So I spend all of my time in the tree. The tree will never die. The tree and I are one. I will save the tree. The tree will be fine. And then the tree dies. And I'm like, how? And then suddenly I'm left with this like plot of earth that used to feel so lush. My life used to feel so lush. And then it feels barren and cold and exposed. And so do I. And I'm thinking, I don't know how to grow something and keep it alive. Everything I touch dies. And then suddenly something new grows that I feel like was this seed, this like throwaway seed that I planted so long ago that I never intended for it to grow. And not only does it grow, it suddenly shows up in this way that it's like, I have shade, I have nourishment, I enjoy spending time here. It was for in my life, these friendships that were kind of these peripheral friendships that I had never poured all of this energy into, like I had with these best friendships that I'd lost. And suddenly these women, their friendships had always been easy. Like they were people I met and just got along with really well. Suddenly they showed up, like they found me in the desert. Like they packed a camel backpack and said, yeah, it's no big deal. I'll hike out there and find you. And it was so like, what do you mean? Because these people who were supposed to love me forever always made it seem like it was such a burden to pack a camel backpack and go on a hike to find me. And now these people who that owe me nothing, who I haven't spent all this time in my life trying to nourish, are just like, hey, hi, not a mirage. Here's some water. Let's, you can come sleep on my couch. It's fine. And it was just this extraordinary effort. And suddenly these friendships that felt like they weren't transactional, like they didn't need me to perform some role in their life to make them feel a certain way in order for them to stay. They just liked me. And I was like almost recoiling from it because it was so unfamiliar. And like, I didn't trust it. But really the lesson that I've learned in the wake of these huge losses was that the love you deserve often can't find you until you make room for it, until you let that cycle of death pass through and you don't hold on to things so tightly that they suffocate and they're trying to get away from you even more so. And your palms are bleeding because your nails are pressing into it. And suddenly this thing resents you and it doesn't feel like love to it anymore. And you are like, why are you trying to leave me? And it doesn't feel like love to you. And it's because you don't know how to just open your palms and say, nobody owes me anything. You can come and you can go. And the love that I give you is love I would give you if you never answered the phone again. Like this love is free. And that was incredibly hard for me to learn.
This is like soul food almost. Okay. The string cheese poem. When I read that, I was like, oh, this has to be about a lover, like beautiful. Oh my God. And I'm like, oh my God, when was she in love? This is so insane. And then at the very end, this poem is about string cheese. Oh my God.
Should I just read it? Read it?
Please read it.
The background is, obviously I wrote this poem and there was some reactions from the people that decide, can this be in the final book, who were like, sorry, what? And I was like, it has to be in there. And they were like,
it comes after like a really heart-wrenching part too.
I used the poems to kind of transition people tonally and like thematically from chapter to chapter, because it is a wanton collection of stories that does not have an arc, right? So I use these poems to kind of be like a palate cleanser, if you will. And so then I wrote this poem, Hear Me, My Love, and I'll just read it to you. I had to fight for this one. Long story short, I was like, it's staying in there.
I'm so glad it stayed because it was such a comic relief. Loved it.
Exactly. Okay. So it goes, hear me, my love, so I may call you when I wake, when I feel the touch of time, when I suffer that dull ache. Hear me, my love, the only sacred thing I savor, so I may free you from your prison, so I may peel away the layers. Hear me, my love, so I may prove to you my favor, teeth and tongue upon you, so I may moan under your flavor. Hear me, my love, so I may tell you that you saved me from the gnawing thing that comes at night. You have stopped the pain from spreading. You are my constant guiding light. And then in much smaller font, about 2 lines down, it says, this poem is about string cheese, which this is an ode to my midnight cheese snacks.
You're always on a hunt for a good snack.
I love a cheese snack. I'm half raccoon. So when I say, so I may tell you that you save me from the gnawing thing, it comes at night. Sure. You might be thinking that I'm writing a poem about oral sex and being super horny. No, I'm writing a poem about waking up hungry and fussy and wanting to go eat a string cheese in the dark in nothing but the glow of the refrigerator. So this was a favorite poem for me in the book, Hear Me, My Love.
I absolutely adore your book. I think you are such a talented storyteller. Like,
thank you.
You just have such a brilliant mind. And I was crying. I was laughing. I was crying again. Tell all of the listeners where we can find your book, where we can find you as well, because I'm sure they're already following you, but for the people that aren't.
Yeah. So the book, like, you can find it at Barnes & Noble in real life. You can ask your local bookstores to order a copy. You can order it on Amazon, which, I have feelings about, but if it makes anybody feel better, the 4th chapter is called We Deserve Better Supervillains Than a Dude Named Jeff. So
that was a good one.
So at least I got to dig in. But I want to say about the book, like when I do my TikTok videos, my goal of those videos is usually to make people feel seen in 60 seconds. I just want people to be able to send it to their best friend, to send it to their sister and say, oh my God, you, oh my God, us, one of those just like little moments of being like, I'm not alone in the world. Yeah. But I only get 60 seconds and it's not a lot of time to really like knock on the door of your heart and say, can we explore this place together, maybe fresh eyes will find something new. This book was the answer to the question of, if I had one day, morning till night, brunch to late night pizza, giggling sleepover, to give somebody I loved the best I had, the best of me, everything I'd learned, to set them up with the biggest chance that they'd be okay and that they'd end up in a life that they chose and that they loved, what would I say? And that's what this book is.
Wow.
So I hope you feel seen. I hope it makes you laugh. I hope it offers you a new path, a new place to explore, offers you forgiveness and peace and just a bit of space to breathe. You can find it in all of those places. You can find me on the internet, being a modern day semi-professional internet clown. That's my day job. I'm on TikTok and Instagram and also Threads occasionally when I feel absolutely unhinged, at Devrie Brynn. It's D as in dog, E-V like Victoria, RIEBRYNN. And in the future, I'm hoping to do a one-woman show here somewhere in New York pretty soon. I'm noodling on that. I'm manifesting it. And that's that.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And I'll link the book in my show notes as well for everyone that wants to purchase a copy. Devrie, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a prognosticating pleasure, I'll tell you what.
She's a hoot, I swear. I love Devrie. All of her links are below in the show notes if you want to explore more of her content and buy her book. And if you loved this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, share, and review it so it becomes more visible to besties like you. Until next time, be a fucking delight, bitch.